Hello, hi. This is the artist Human Company speaking. Um, this is the first time I'm doing something like this. Um, I just want to speak about um, some upcoming things and just life in general. Um, so I'll start off with the main thing. Um, about a week ago, my mother was hospitalized because of a chronic illness that she has had. And this past Tuesday, she unfortunately passed away, um, which has been a great deal of suffering and pain and misery and any other adjective that you can use um, for both my family and myself. Um, Personally, I'm still grieving, and I will probably continue to grieve for maybe the rest of my life. Um, but I wanted to talk specifically what that means in relation to um, the music and the art that I've been making. Um, so just as a side tangent for me to talk about my music, um, I've been making music as a sort of creative outlet. Um, just it's something that um, ever since I was little, I've been a big fan of music. Um, I I have so many um, references and things that I listen to, and more importantly, not just like reference, but actively enjoy and engage with. Um, so yeah, I'm a big fan of music from a very young age. Um, but I never really got into the whole making music um, part of music, I guess. It requires a lot of effort and a lot of skill and a lot of dedication. And regarding like instruments, um, my parents tried to get me to play an instrument uh, when I was in elementary school, but it did not vibe well, and it wasn't my path at the time. Um, I accidentally discovered like how to make music in my own way via GarageBand using my phone um, while I was working on a school project. Um, and yeah, that's kind of how I got into music, um, or at least the music that I'm making. Um, but yeah, I see I see this music project as a way to make the music that I wish the artists that I revere and idolize would make, you know, um, because it's with big artists, it's very common to take a lot of time to make music between albums. Um, Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's definitely It definitely requires a lot of a lot of thinking in terms of making making a good album um with respect to the personal artistic process. You know, um personally I make a lot of music, um but my level of productivity isn't meant to be something that is um like something that would make me commercially viable. Um, I see every project that I make as its own unique and distinct thing. And um, my output of music that I make is um, just more. It's a show of how much I like to make music and how much I like to listen to music. Um, with that being said, um, there were a bunch of projects. Um, there's always a bunch of projects. I should start by saying that there's always a bunch of projects that I have that I'm planning or working on. Because I'm honestly not a very focused person. So I move from one project to the next. I'll be I'll be like 50% through like making one album, and then I'll go and transition to another album, and I'll do that like 5 or 6 times. Um, and it just, it loans a lot of flexibility to the creative process, you know. Because definitely when you're working on as much music as I'm working on, and I should also say this, it's a hobby, not a job. I'm definitely not making any money from this, or like any, money that would be able to sustain this project realistically. But like when I make as much music as I do, um, it gets tiring in terms of like listening to and designing a singular project. So that's why I hop between a lot of different projects um, when I'm just in that creative process. Um, but I say all of that to say I have a bunch of different projects that were in the pipeline. Um, but I would say with my mother's passing, um, I don't feel comfortable releasing that kind of music. Um, Not that it's like bad or disrespectful music. Um, but like I would say I make music as like an extension of my personal creative decisions. And I feel like continuing to release the albums that I made, um, with respect to my own creative process, just feels kind of tone deaf, um, and with respect to the passing of my mom. So essentially, I'm going to keep working on the, the projects that I had in mind. Um, I'm going to finish them, but, uh, I would say for the next couple of months, if not until the end of this year, uh, I do not plan on releasing any of the projects that I have been currently working on, just out of respect to my mother and just giving myself time to grieve. Um, I really just want to put out um, one to maybe three projects that really represent uh, how I'm handling the grieving process of the passing of my mother. So I'm essentially going to start from scratch, um, and make maybe, like I said, maybe like 1 to 3 projects um, that are going to be um, focused around those like themes of grieving. Um, but yeah, it's going to be a heavily reduced output. I'm not sure how or when I will be releasing these projects over the remaining course of either the year or several months. Um, I don't have any of that planned out as of right now. So it's all, I'm really just making it up as I go. Um, Outside of that, um, I will be, I will be, making sort of, I hate to say content because I hate to, I hate the idea of being a content creator. Um, Whatever I make is made with an artistic intent in mind. Um, so I hate to call it content, but I'll be making essentially just recordings like these, um, in like I guess a sort of uh, podcast or like stream of mind sort of format. Um, and I'll be making like individual recordings, just talking about individual albums that I've released over not just this year but also last year, and just like the creative process behind those albums, um, from stuff like how I made the album artwork and what inspired me to make the album artwork, to individual songs and what I think of them, um, what my favorite songs are off of certain albums that I've made, and like my least favorite, or if things that I think are like underrated or go unnoticed. Um, so yeah, I plan to do that. Um, Currently I have what, like 16, 17 releases. So that's at least 17 videos of me talking for, I don't know, however long. Um, I should also say this, I'm not a very good orator. Um, none of what I'm saying right now is scripted. Um, and I'd personally prefer it to be that way unless it gets unreasonably long or long-winded. Um, you know, I just want these to be like genuine genuine things that I'm saying rather than, I don't know, things that are more like sculpted like my music. So that's kind of what I plan to be doing um for the next few months. Um and yeah, I also want to take the time to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all of the people who have supported me and in this um making of music. Actually, I should interrupt my stream of thought to say, um a lot of the things I'm saying right now seem like very like an air of finality. I plan to continue making music. This is not an I'm quitting music uh recording. Um Perhaps I should have stated that from the very beginning. So I hope none of you have um come away with that impression. Uh, this is just me being very tired in regards to events in my personal life. Um, but with that being said, I want to take the time to say thank you to all of the people who have listened and engaged with my art. Um, it means a lot in the sense that, I am truly independent, in when I make my art. all of the creative direction, all of the album artwork comes from me. Um, I don't spend money promoting this stuff, partially because I'm graduating college and I don't have the money to like promote that kind of stuff. But also, I've always wanted to just make art in a very organic way and let my art stand on its own merit and its own feet. Um, and I feel like, to an extent, I've done that. It's been wonderful to have so many people from around the world, um, of varying demographics, um, who have been able to just be enamored with my music. When I started this project, I never envisioned having like people who would be, I guess, sort of dedicated fans, um, who would like be excited for my release. A lot of my process has been just releasing things into the void and letting them be engaged with, um, as people um, just kind of bump into them. Um, but I just want to take the time to say thank you to the people who have just like taken the time out of their day to listen to and enjoy, or maybe not even enjoy, but just take the time to listen to my music and my art. Um, and like whether you're coming away with a positive perception of my art or a negative perception, or even if you negatively perceive me, um, and you don't like how I do things, um, I'm glad that you, as an audience member, as a listener, as a fan, as a human being, are just taking the time out of your day to engage with something that doesn't necessarily need to be engaged with. Um, I'm very grateful. Um, it's been very inspiring to read comments where people will be like, "Oh, your music changed the color of my day." Um, I never imagined having that kind of impact on anybody via my art. So I'm very glad that I've been able to have that impact, and I'm glad that I'll be able to continue having that impact. Um, let's see, what else. What else do I want to say? Uh, I don't know. I don't know. Um, I guess I'll talk about the ethos of my art, even though I think I've kind of already talked about it. Um, that I've done a lot of effort on my part in order to make my music pretty much freely available on most major and minor streaming platforms. Um, when I originally started this music project, if you go all the way back, you'll see my YouTube only releases, um, and I think most of those releases, or at least some of them, can also be found on my Bandcamp. Um, but when I started this project, uh, I planned to only like release on YouTube, um, and I don't know. It was I think that was like just a part of my indie perspective in terms of just like being a bedroom artist. But then I had a friend uh, during like my sophomore year of college, and she wanted to be able to listen to my music on Spotify. And she said, "Oh, you should put your music on Spotify." Um, and like, I would say streaming is weird because, um, it allows for access, it allows for people from various populations. Like on Spotify, um, there are people who can access my music who would never have accessed it. Um, People who are like listening to music on like a more mainstream or like a more shallow experience where they may not necessarily be seeking out um like new music. It might just be algorithmically delivered to them. Um so that kind of changed my mind on like streaming. Um just having more of an outreach, even though I'm not really able to directly engage um, with listeners on like streaming platforms like Spotify or Apple Music in the way that I might be able to do on like YouTube or Bandcamp. Um, but yeah, seeing that kind of um, impact changed my mind on like streaming. So um, yeah, that's just kind of like I like when I was little, I would um I would download like my favorite music, or rather not just download. Me and my parents, we would go to the library and they would have CDs of like um different artists, and we would put that onto our computer, and we had like a mini library of like just things that we had downloaded. Um, and so I wanted to make my music um, just very accessible. And thanks to like streaming and advances in technology, I'm able to make my music like freely available or at any price, just so that you know I think of like a kid like me, one day, just being able to access my albums without any sort of restrictions. Um, I will say, profit wise, in terms of like money, um, that definitely does impact how much money I make from this project. Um, well, I guess I should start from the beginning. Um, this project is like 99% a creative outlet for me. Um, I've never wanted money to be like a source of contention or like a source of motivation as to why I make an album. Um, I don't consider myself a commercial artist, even though I'm pretty much prolific or like hyper prolific to the point where, you know, I put out like 8 or 7 albums maybe in a year, probably more, if this was a normal year. Um, but I don't put out that many albums as a means of making money, and I don't really make that much money. Um, well, I should probably elaborate on the actual amount of money that I make, because I think me saying that I don't make that much money makes me sound like a very rich person. Uh, in terms of streaming, uh, if I compile all of my current releases together, um, I would say I made about like what six $6 in total. Um, just combining everything from like 2024 up until um not now, because the billing period is always kind of behind. Um, but I would say up, here it is, up until March. So I made $6.45 uh in total from like combined streaming platforms. Um, so I definitely do not do this for money. Um, and then on Bandcamp, uh, my general practice is to just allow people to um access my albums for whatever price they feel like uh they're comfortable with. So generally that's just like free. Um, I don't really have a preference on whether if people pay for my albums or not. I'm grateful if they do because um money allows me to have like peace of mind in terms of like um other stuff just like regarding my personal life. But I don't see this project being like financially viable anytime soon. Um, the most amount of money that I've actually made from this project, I guess I should bring this up because um, I did actually talk about or post about this on my Instagram or in my YouTube posts. Um, but I collaborated or have collaborated with I guess the artist or the label many tiny boxes. Um, they came across my music, or they more specifically, uh, they came across uh, my album Aguillo. Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not quite sure. I'm not French. Um, but they came across it and they really enjoyed it, and they essentially offered to make CDs as like a sort of test run as a for other artists who are on their like label. Um, so they made that as a test run. Uh, and if you want to have like a physical piece of merchandise via the CD, and also like unique CD artwork, because I put that on there too. Um, and you can still purchase that on my Bandcamp. Um, yeah, I've enjoyed many tiny boxes working with them. Uh, it's definitely been cool to have this sort of like uh conglomeration of indie artists who I've discovered and like I've listened to their music. And I really enjoy like the creativity that they put into each work. There's just so many artists, and not just musical artists, but visual artists, and um, it's also just a very diverse and welcoming crowd. So I'm glad that I've been able to just organically come across and interact with them. Um, yeah, I owe them a lot in terms of like just the kindness and work that they've been willing to extend um, in order to help me distribute my stuff. Um, but yeah, if you want to buy it, it's on Bandcamp. If you don't want to buy it, that's okay too. Um, I will say, um, in terms of like merchandise in general, I've always been, I've always been of the mindset that the merchandise I provide should be on par with the artistic level that I'm bringing with my music or my art. And so, in terms of merchandise, I'm I'm firstly and foremostly an artist, if you can even call me that. I'm an amateur artist. Um, but I don't really, it's a lot of work. I'll start by saying that it takes a lot of work to just be an artist in general. And to then like have a sort of like monetized stream of income in terms of like creating stuff for dedicated fans is very difficult. And it's even more difficult in the sense that I don't want to make low quality merchandise. You know, I don't necess- I don't necessarily want to like make stuff like t-shirts right now or like mugs, because I feel like you can really get that from any artist, and it doesn't mean a lot. Um, that's not like a set in stone decision. If there's like demand for that at any point, I will try my best. But I really, if I make merch in any sort of way, I've always wanted it to be something that is worth buying and worth engaging with. Um, I don't want to like have people buy things in sort of in this sort of like consumerism way where people are just buying to, to make me happy and to support me financially. I would hope that anything that I make has like genuine value and impact on uh, the lives of whoever is consuming it. Um, and then just outside of like the quality of my merch, um, you know, it's difficult in terms of like distributing stuff because, I'm not like a vendor or anything. I'm just a human being. So for any like, I don't know, any merch right now will presumably be digital, outside of my CDs. But again, if they're like outside like labels or vendors, like many tiny boxes who gratefully reached out, who are able to distribute stuff on their own end, um, that would that definitely helps with like merch and stuff, and that's where merch will be coming from, generally speaking. Um, but yeah. Oh, I forgot why I was talking about merch so much. I was gonna say, in terms of like profitability, is that a word? I think it is. Maybe I just didn't pronounce it correctly. But in terms of profit, um, two sales of CDs that are being produced for the Many Tiny Boxes collab, that made me $25. So two sales of that eclipsed the amount of money that I've ever made uh, throughout the lifetime of this project. So that's I'm definitely not doing this project for money. Um, but again, like money is nowhere near a, I can't say it's not a concern because, I'm not like a rich person. Um, but it's not the focus and it's not what drives anything, for this musical project for now and the future. Um, so yeah, those are my thoughts on that, and just kind of discussing like the general ethos of um what goes into this. Um, but yeah, just to recap, um, I'm kind of putting all of the projects that I had planned to the side, for at least the majority of the rest of this calendar year. Um, and then let's see. and I'm making a podcast, or like I'm releasing videos with me just kind of talking about each of the albums that I've made. Um, and then, yeah, I've been going through the grieving process. It's been long and difficult, and it will continue to be long and difficult. Uh, I posted about it on social media, and I got a lot of condolences. So I'm grateful for the internet in the sense that I've been able to connect with so many strangers and so many people who have gone through the same thing or similar things, like the loss of a loved one. And I'm glad to just be able to connect on that level. So thank you to those people, and thank you to you, the listener, for listening and supporting me. Um, I guess just one last announcement, a thing that I have to say. Um, so on Monday, we went to see my mother in the hospital, um, while she was hooked up to machines, and she was on dialysis. And um, the hospital was discussing, like, with my dad, whether they should, like, take my mom off life support, because she had organ damage. Well, not just organ damage, complete organ failure across multiple organs. So it was a very low, if not non-existent, chance of recovery. Um, so before we walked into the hospital, um, you know, as a family, we, with my dad and my sister, we kind of just had to acknowledge that we were probably seeing my mom for the last time alive. Um, and she was sedated, so she couldn't hear anything that we were saying. Um, I will say, um, she was like moving her head side to side, and her eyes were cloudy, but there were multiple times where, um, I was beside her bed, and she just kind of looked at me, and I don't know if she could actually see. From a medical perspective, she probably could not see me. Um, but from a from the perspective as her son, I felt like she was able to see what little she could see of me, um, for like the last time. And so I take a little solace in that. Um, but prior to us going to the hospital, I was depressed. I still am depressed. I'm very depressed. Um, I've been just kind of spun out for the last few days. Um, but I hopped on my phone, and I decided to uh, make a piano piece, which was a strange decision because I'm not a piano player or an instrument player of any kind. But I just kind of made a piano piece, um, that would I felt would be fitting for uh, like the last time I would see my mom alive. And so I made that, and I guess shortly after I published this recording of me talking about all of this, um, I plan to release that recording. Um, Maybe we'll go on like one of the future albums that I plan to release with respect to my mother that will be this year. Um, but yeah, that's kind of what I have to say on that. Um, I'll let the music speak for itself. It's nothing mind blowing. It's just me doing piano stuff. Or yeah. Um, but yeah, that's all I have to really say. Uh, Thank you for taking the time to listen. If you've listened the whole way through, um, I'm definitely not a very organized person, but I feel like this way of speaking is definitely definitely more genuine to how I personally interact. Um, yeah, I think it's just nice to be able to hear my voice um, outside of a musical context, even though I'm very heartbroken uh, and just exhausted from everything. But again, thank you.